Hello and welcome to today's video. I was knitting along on my sweater the other day and I noticed several centimeters down there was a hole in my sweater. It wasn't a very big hole, but I had a look at it and I realized I had either dropped the stitch or probably caught just a tiny bit of the stitch and knitted it, and then that little bit of fluff, because it's alpaca silk, had probably broken off and the stitch had just unraveled just one or two rows. But I had the right number of stitches when I finished, so I just put a stitch marker through it, and today I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix it. Now, I'm currently in Norway at my parents' house, so I don't have my normal setup, and the lighting in their house is really bad. So I'm hoping this is okay, but let me know what you think. If you find the dropped stitch several centimeters down from where you are, would you unravel it and just start again, or would you try and fix it? So this has happened to me before, so I thought I would just show you how I fix it. If you're new here, my name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns, I teach knitting workshops online and in person, and I sell yarn through my website YarnAddict.co.uk. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I do apologise for the filming setup is different from at home. I'm struggling in my parents' house to find somewhere that's light enough to film this, so I'm hoping this is okay. So this is where I've dropped the stitch. Now, once I discovered this, I was already probably about that far past it. And the first thing I did was put a stitch marker in it to stop it unraveling. This yarn, because it has like fluffy alpaca in it, it's not going to unravel very quickly, but it would unravel eventually. And also because it's dark and difficult to see, and the lighting is always bad in here, especially in January when it's not that bright outside most of the day. I didn't want to lose where this was, so I put a stitch marker in it to stop it from unraveling. If you don't have a stitch marker, put a string of yarn through it. If you're knitting with a dark colour like this, I would probably put a yarn in a different colour that's a bit brighter and easier to see, but I put this one in. And then I counted how many stitches I had, and I have actually got the right number of stitches. So I think what's happened is that I may have just caught like a tiny bit of the yarn and knitted through it rather than the whole stitch. And that's why, but it's only unraveled like a couple of 1 or 2 rows, I think. So let's see how we're going to fix it. So I need a tiny crochet hook. You can do this with a knitting needle as well, but it's definitely easier with a crochet hook. If you have lost a stitch and you have 1 stitch less, then if you see here, once I get up to here, there isn't a gap. There's only a gap here where my finger is. Once I get further up, there's no gap. So trying to pick this stitch all the way up would be very difficult. I've also now knitted on for about 20 centimeters past where I found this stitch, because I was waiting for a time when I could fix it on camera. So first thing we want to do is to pick it up any dropped rows. So I think that's just one. Hang on. Yes, I think that's just 1 row. That one. And I don't want to end up with a hole, so I'm actually going to go up 1 more. Like that. And then I think that will be fine, because above that is quite tight. And I counted, if I had found that I had 1 stitch less, then I would have just increased the stitch in the roughly the same area of the sweater. I wouldn't have bothered trying to pick this all the way up, because I think that would have been very difficult to do, because there isn't a ladder. If you drop a stitch right at the top and it unravels all the way down, you'll have a ladder that you can follow all the way up. So go up as far as the ladder will allow you, like that, and then I'm going to take that hook out, and I have a sewing needle with a thread of yarn in the same yarn. So I'm just going to take that through like that. I've got quite a big long piece of yarn here, which I probably don't need quite that long, but and then depending on what kind of sewing needle you do, because I like these with the big loops, This one is one I've had for years, but Lantern Moon and Knit Pro both do them. And I actually normally have them available in my online shop. And I can put 2 strands of yarn through there, and especially because this yarn is very thin. If you have a thinner needle where you can only get 1 strand of yarn through at a time, then you do this with 1 strand at a time. But I can get both strands through, so I'm going to do both strands at the time. Then I'm going to go through this hole. I'm actually going to go, can you see there, that's the hole. I'm going to go actually over the strand above that. And then pull that through to the back. And then before I weave in the ends, I just want to check, make sure I haven't got a hole there. So then I can turn it to the back and not get tangled up in my working yarn. There we go. And you probably didn't see that on camera. And then I'm going to separate these 2 strands. So now I'm going to weave this in. And this is really difficult with this yarn because I can't really see the stitches very clearly. So normally I would choose a row of pearl bumps and go into them like this, but I can't really add, to be quite honest, I can't see. Yeah, it looks roughly like I'm in a row, but I can't quite see properly because it's so dark in here. Like that. And then I tend to like pull it back a bit just to make sure that it's not too tight. There we go. And then I'm going to just go back a couple of stitches. This is quite good yarn because it does stick to itself. So it's not slippery yarn that's going to slide out again. So you don't need to go back very far. And then I'm just going to pull it, make sure I haven't pulled it tight. And then I'm going to cut that thread off. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. But when I make mistakes, I like to try and fix them on camera if I can, because it shows you organically how to fix mistakes, and it also shows you that somebody like me, who I'm a professional knitter because that's my job, and I'm also been knitting for most of my life, and I am quite an experienced, and I would say I'm quite an experienced knitter by now. I should be. I've been teaching for years and done quite a lot, but I still make mistakes. So let's see, have a look at this. So that's, where is it? That's where it is. So that's where it is. So let's just turn it over. No, I can't see it. There we go. I think that's okay. I'm happy with that fix. There we go. And then I have actually done the same mistake again over here. I think it was, I don't know whether it was on the same row or a couple of rows later, but I discovered that like the next day or something. But again, I counted and I do have the right number of stitches, so I just carried on knitting. So I'm going to fix this one off camera because you don't really need to see me do it twice because it's the same as the other one. So if you drop a stitch, if it was just like a few rows down, I would have got a crochet hook out and picked it up to the row I was on. I would have had to count, because if you have accidentally split a stitch and then it's full, that thread is broken, so you carried on knitting that column up, if that makes sense, and you actually had the right number of stitches, then you don't really need to do anything. But if you have a stitch less, then you obviously have to make up that stitch somehow. So then you can pick the stitch all the way up if it's only a few rows. If it's several centimeters, then you probably won't be able to pick that stitch all the way up unless you dropped it on a very recent row. And then you should see a ladder that you can follow all the way up. But what you don't need to do in a lot of cases is, if your stitch pattern is correct, like this is just stocking stitch, so it looks fine. If your stitch pattern is correct and you're happy with everything that's happened since you dropped the stitch or since you discovered the loose stitch, don't feel like you have to unravel all of that just with one drop stitch. Just do a fix like this. I do this, I wouldn't say all the time, but quite regularly. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions, please ask below this video. I have loads of other tutorials on my channel. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.